So in our third spine video, let's talk a little bit more about the parts of the spine, the individual vertebrae and the typical vertebrae, like the general sort of broadly speaking features that all vertebrae have. First of all, they're considered irregular bones. We have a bunch of different classified shapes of bones. Hopefully you remember that from A&P when you took that as prereq. But these ones are considered irregular because, I mean, just, look at them. They all have a body to them, they all have an arch, and they all have 7 processes. That's the things that they have all in common. So they have body, and they have the vertebral arch, which is like this whole sort of a structure right here. And then they have these processes. And there's a couple more that you can't see on the left view, on the superior view, but you can see them up here, and there's a couple below down there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All of these vertebrae are capable of forming joints with one another, so intervertebral joints. The atlas bone, the C1, is capable of forming a craniovertebral joint. That's where where atlas will form a joint along the occipital condyles. Zygapophyseal facet joints, I like to just say facet joints, I can never say the Z word. Those are going to form joints between other vertebrae as well, but they're going to be sort of more flat. If you think of like, I don't know how familiar you are with like jewelry terms or gems or anything like that, but a facet is like one of those flat parts that they etch out to make, like, the flat parts along a diamond shape. Those are each considered to be facets. And so in vertebrae, those facets are going to sort of form a flat-ish joint with other vertebrae that help sort of restrict their range of motion along certain planes. You can find costovertebral joints. Those are joints between the vertebrae and ribs. Costo always refers to ribs. Hopefully it's obvious. You're only going to find those through the thoracic spine. And finally, you'll find a sacroiliac joint as well. That's going to be a very facet-like sort of a joint along the lateral aspects of the sacrum with the ilium. So focusing on the vertebral arch for a minute, we talked about having an actual like arch shape and then some processes that come off of it. You'll notice that between the body of the vertebra and the arch, you end up making holes, right? So this arch is going to end up surrounding things. And so you can think of the arch kind of as like a structural formation to permit that thing to be going through the middle of the bone without having to make like one long inflexible bone. Having, instead of it just sort of completely surrounding the spinal cord and being multiple parts, also means that you can more easily permit sort of very flexible open side holes for things to come off, for nerves to come off of the spinal cord as well. The vertebral arch itself is just sort of the curved part here. It does not include the pedicle, or sorry, does not include the processes or the body. It's really just sort of in here. There we go. Now my pen works. And it's divided into 2 main parts. You have a pedicle, which is sort of this part, forget the processy looking thing here, but just this part of the arch. So let me just draw a schematic actually. So if you think of this as a body, think of this as the arch, process, process, process. You have this part right here, right there are your pedicles. And this part right here are your lamina. Pedicle pluralized has an S at the end, lamina then has an E, just like vertebra, vertebrae, lamina, laminae. So the just if it helps you at all, pedicle means little foot in Latin. So like pedicure, foot, pedicle, bottom, and it's the bottom part that's sort of supporting the rest of the arch. It's a little foot. And then lamina refers to like some kind of a thin sheet. So if you think of something being laminated, like dough, laminated dough is like that flaky sort of dough where it falls apart in sheets, puff pastry or even like biscuits or something. Or like if you have a laminated page, it's covered with a thin sheet of something else, right? So in this case, it's like a very thin sort of sheet that's going to be connecting the three processes to one another to create and complete the rest of this arch. And then you end up creating a couple of foramina. So let me erase some of this stuff here. All right, erased. We have a vertebral foramen that's created right in here, right? So we have the body of the vertebrae, we have pedicle, we have lamina, and you end up with a hole in the middle. That's where your spinal cord is going to go. You also end up with gaps, and this picture doesn't show it in a fabulous way, but we'll see this better in future pictures, where you end up with gaps like in here between the one of the facet joints or one of the inferior spinous process with the superior vertebra spinous process as well. And through here, you can see your spinal nerves start to emerge to either side. This is also the space when I was talking about those spinal branches of the vertebral arteries, or the arteries in general that are going to be the blood supply to your vertebrae. This is where those are going to enter that middle sort of space, that vertebral canal area as well. Now, all of your processes are like the spiky things that's going to come off of the bone. Whenever you see the word process in anatomy, it's going to be like a pointy, outy, spiky, sort of jutting out thing. So in this case, your vertebra have a bunch of processes, and they're all going to be named after either what they're shaped like or what they do. So first, you have transverse processes. Take a minute and look at these pictures and try to think of what the transverse processes would be. Remember, this is the anterior, and this is the posterior. So it's got to be the ones sticking out to the side, right? These are your transverse processes. Process for singular. Your spinous process is going to be the one that, like, when you think about running your finger down somebody's spine, that's the one. That's you're feeling down the length of the spinous processes. That's going to be pointing midline posteriorly, so it's got to be this one. You also have superior articular and inferior articular processes as well. And these are going to form those facet joints that I was talking about before. So you can see on this picture to the right, this guy right here, those guys, and then you can see a little bit of a jutting there. You can even see the inferior articular processes there as well. So the inferior articular surface is going to form a joint. Right there, you can see that flat area with the superior articular facet or process, the facet of that superior articular process inferiorly to it. And so what these are going to do is sort of restrict your around kind of motions a little bit, but it's also going to restrict your flexion and extension motions a good bit as well. If you think of it as more of like a firm backboard as opposed to like a rotating ball socket kind of feeling joint.